I trained the person who replaced me, and I even bought her coffee the morning they fired me. Yeah, that's how my story starts. My name's Evelyn Park, 32, senior account strategist. Or at least, I was. I lived for the grind, early mornings, sharp suits, and the electric buzz of closing multimillion-dollar deals in a downtown skyscraper that smelled like ambition and burnt espresso. I believed loyalty meant something. That if you worked hard, if you bled for the company, they'd have your back. That was before they replaced me with a 22-year-old intern named Sophie. But let's back up. I'd spent 7 years at Holden & Company, a boutique corporate firm that specialized in mergers and acquisitions, the kind of place where people smiled while they sharpened knives behind your back. My boss, Martin Holden, was one of those rare CEOs who made you believe. Charismatic. Precise. The type who remembered your dog's name, then used it in a company-wide meeting to make you feel seen. I'd been his right hand since year 3. We built trust. He once called me his strategic brain. We'd pull all-nighters together, shoulder to shoulder over glowing spreadsheets, crafting deals worth more than small countries. I thought we were unstoppable, partners in a way. Then Sophie arrived. She was bright, green, and endlessly eager, the kind of intern who said yes before you even finished your sentence. I liked her. I really did. I took her under my wing, taught her how to anticipate client hesitations, how to make numbers tell a story. She reminded me of me, once. But soon, things started to shift. Martin began CCING her on confidential threads. My meeting invites got lost. She started presenting my reports, the ones I'd stayed up rewriting to perfection, and Martin praised her for the fresh insight. Still, I brushed it off. Corporate politics. Happens all the time. I told myself I was paranoid, overworked. Until the morning of the $80 million Kestrel deal. Our biggest client ever. The one I'd spent 6 months securing. Martin asked to chat privately before the final meeting. I walked in with my notes and my nerves. He smiled, that same polished, rehearsed smile, and said the words that still echo in my head. Evelyn, you've been incredible. But we're taking a new direction. Sophie will be leading the Kestrel presentation today. And that was the moment something cracked. Because when I looked at Sophie, she wouldn't meet my eyes. And for the first time, I realized, this wasn't an accident. Something was very, very wrong. You know how betrayal doesn't hit all at once? It creeps in. Quiet. Polite. Like a draft under a locked door. After that meeting, I told myself it was a misunderstanding. Martin trusted me. He had to. Maybe Sophie just got her chance early. Maybe this was mentorship paying off. But deep down, something in me had already started to flinch. The first red flag came the next morning. Sophie stopped by my desk, her usual sunshine smile dimmed into something rehearsed. She placed a latte beside me, my order of course, and said, Martin thought you deserved a break. I'll handle Kestrel's final projections. I laughed it off, but when I opened the shared drive that afternoon, half my files were gone. The folder I'd built from scratch, renamed draft_3_Sophie edit. At first, I thought I'd made a mistake. Maybe I'd saved them somewhere else. But then I noticed something chilling. Her version of the files used my data, my notes, even my phrasing. Only now, her name sat in the metadata. Still, I didn't say anything. Because confronting Martin meant admitting I was scared, that I might be losing control of everything I'd built. Instead, I worked harder. Stayed later. Tried to prove I was indispensable. But the office started to feel different. Martin's door, once always open, began to close more often. Conversations stopped when I walked by. I caught Sophie and Martin laughing together through the glass, her hand on his arm, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it. It shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. Not because of jealousy, but because it felt staged. Like they wanted me to see. Then came the second red flag. A late-night email, sent to the Kestrel client list. It was a mistake, a reply all from Sophie, meant for Martin. Should I tell her we've been working on the side deck? I froze. Side deck? What side deck? By morning, the email was gone. Deleted from the thread. My copy, too. I checked the logs, erased remotely. Only admins could do that. When I finally looked up, Martin was standing at my cubicle, coffee in hand, that same calm voice as always. Evelyn, I hope you're not overextending yourself. You've done more than enough. It sounded like praise, but it landed like a warning. That night, as the office lights dimmed and city glass turned black, I sat alone at my desk staring at my reflection in the monitor, wondering when exactly the company I'd loved stopped feeling like home, and started feeling like a setup. Because every instinct in me whispered one thing. They weren't just replacing me. They were erasing me. Betrayal doesn't announce itself. It seeps in, a whisper, a shift, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Mine came on a Thursday morning. Rain on the windows. Coffee gone cold. The Kestrel deal was scheduled to close that afternoon. The single biggest merger Holden and Company had ever handled. I'd built it from scratch. The models, the negotiation points, the client trust. It was supposed to be my moment. But when I walked into the conference room, something was off. Every seat was filled, except mine. Sophie stood at the head of the table, laser pointer in hand, my slides glowing behind her. The ones I'd spent 6 months perfecting. My words, my flow, my strategy, all polished to look like hers. And next to her, Martin. Calm. Proud. Evelyn, he said, barely glancing at me. We decided to streamline the team for efficiency. Sophie's presentation will represent all of our collective work. Collective work. The phrase hit harder than I expected. I should have walked out. I should have screamed. But instead, I sat in the back, silent, watching Sophie sell my plan, the one Martin had promised would secure my promotion to partner. And then, in one casual slide transition, I saw the proof. Bottom corner. Footer text. Proposal prepared by Sophie M. Lynn, lead strategist. Lead strategist. My title. When the presentation ended, the clients applauded. Sophie looked radiant, flushed with victory, gratitude, nerves. Martin shook her hand like a proud mentor. And me. I couldn't feel my hands at all. After the meeting, I cornered Martin in his office. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. My voice was steady, but my heart was screaming. He didn't even look up from his laptop. Because it wasn't your project anymore. The board felt a younger face might resonate better with clients. You're invaluable, Evelyn, but not essential. Invaluable. Not essential. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just favoritism, it was a setup. My accounts were being reassigned. My name scrubbed from reports. Sophie wasn't my replacement by accident. She was groomed for it. And Martin had planned it. He'd used my loyalty, my trust, to train the person who'd erase me. I left his office without a word. The elevator ride down felt endless, the city humming beneath me, oblivious. When the doors opened, I caught my reflection in the polished steel. Eyes red, jaw tight, something burning behind them. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was resolve. Because if Martin thought he could erase me quietly, he'd just made the worst mistake of his career. The next time he saw me, it wouldn't be in an office. It would be in the wreckage of his precious $80 million deal. And I'd be the one holding the match. I didn't go home that night. I sat in my car, engine off, rain streaking down the windshield, staring at the Holden and Company building like it was a crime scene, because to me, it was. My laptop was still in the passenger seat, glowing with everything I'd lost. My name. My work. My future. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, I broke. All those years, the skipped birthdays, the cancelled vacations, the endless late nights, all for a company that didn't even blink before gutting me. The grief hit in waves, raw and ugly. I screamed into the steering wheel until my throat went dry. Then, in the silence that followed, I noticed a notification pop up on my laptop. A new message. From Sophie. It was short. Almost casual. Sorry for how things happened today. Martin said it was better this way. Hope you understand. Better this way. The phrase hit me harder than any insult could have. That was my trigger. The moment something inside me shifted. No more tears. No more disbelief. Just a cold, clear focus. I opened my archives, pulling up every email, every contract, every data log connected to the Kestrel deal. If they'd stolen my work, they'd left fingerprints, and I knew every system, every password, every corner of that network. That's when I saw it, a hidden folder, tucked deep inside the shared drive. Kestrel _ Password protected. Accessed only by Martin and Sophie. And inside. My proposal, the exact document I'd written, time-stamped weeks before Sophie ever edited it. But the metadata had been scrubbed clean, replaced with her ID. Martin hadn't just let her steal it. He'd helped rewrite history. That's when I realized I wasn't powerless. I knew that system better than anyone. I built its security protocols. I had admin-level backups stored off-site, where even IT couldn't touch them. They thought they erased me. They had no idea I still had everything. For the first time in days, I smiled, not out of joy, but out of something sharper. Because the game had changed. They'd built their careers on lies. I was going to make sure the truth destroyed them. I packed up my things, locked my laptop, and looked at that glowing skyline, the same city that had chewed me up and spat me out, and whispered to myself, "You wanted to see what happens when you cross the woman who built your empire? Fine. Watch closely." That night, Evelyn Park died, the loyal strategist, the perfect employee. And someone new took her place. Someone who wouldn't rest until justice, or vengeance, was served. I didn't become dangerous overnight. I became patient. First, I built my fortress. Quietly, methodically, I copied every shred of my work to the off-site drives I'd set up years ago, just in case. The same drives Martin always joked were overkill. Contracts, email threads, raw datasets, the dozens of late-night voice memos where clients confessed what they really wanted. I catalogued everything, wrote notes in the margins. Who saw what, when, and why it mattered. Evidence is a cold thing. I made it surgical. Then I stitched my allies into the seam. There was Maya, an old friend from IT who owed me for getting her promoted when no one else would. She still had access to server logs Martin thought were private. There was Anton, a junior analyst who'd been quietly burned by Martin's micromanagement. He'd watched his best models get reassigned and resented it. And there was Carlos, the Kestrel exec who'd always been overly polite on the surface but erratic in private. He'd complained about sudden changes to our proposals when I'd spoken to him off the record. Each of them had a small grudge, and grudges, when organized, become leverage. My plan had 3 layers: prove, provoke, and publicize. Prove. Build an irrefutable timeline showing I wrote the Kestrel playbook, that Martin and Sophie duplicated and republished it under her name, and that confidential edits were made in the hours when only Martin had admin rights. Maya dug up access logs. Anton traced file ownership changes. Carlos agreed to a recorded conversation admitting he was confused when Sophie's slides appeared. I preserved everything in duplicate, encrypted, and labeled. For trial. Provoke. Make them comfortable. I let Sophie keep her new title and gave Martin small, meaningless wins, a few emails that puffed him up, a quiet compliment I forwarded to HR with a line like, "Martin's leadership is inspiring." They relaxed. Overconfidence is a vulnerability I could watch in real time. I seeded a fake side deck, a polished but innocuous presentation that looked like more of the same. It was bait, presentable enough to be shared, traceable to their inboxes, and set to ping me the moment it was forwarded externally. Publicize. I needed an audience that mattered. The Kestrel board, the Holden partners, a forensic auditor friendly to legal action. I lined up Anton and Maya as witnesses, Carlos as the client contact who'd seen the switch, and a small independent accounting firm to run a quick audit once things started to wobble. Every trap was gentle in appearance, a compliment here, a forwarded note there, but wired to explode. I stayed calm. I stopped yelling. My thoughts were spreadsheets now: risk, exposure, outcome. On the last night before the audit, I walked past Martin's office. He was on the phone, laughing, completely unconcerned. Sophie was at his side, glowing with the kind of trust one used to have, the very trust I'd given her. I looked at them both and felt nothing like the Evelyn who'd bought Intern's coffee. I tightened my grip on the folder of evidence in my bag, and for the first time since they'd erased me, the future looked utterly certain. Tomorrow, the board meets. Tomorrow, someone will ask for proof. Tomorrow, something big breaks, and I already know where the first cracks will appear. The morning of the board meeting, the city was unervingly bright, the kind of sterile golden light that makes everything look cleaner than it is. I walked into Holden and Company one last time, my badge still active, my smile steady. Martin and Sophie were already in the conference room, rehearsing for their victory lap. Today, they were finalizing the $80 million Kestrel merger, their career-making deal. They didn't notice me slip in. Kestrel's execs sat at the far end of the table, polite smiles masking fatigue. The firm's partners filled the rest of the room, whispering congratulations to Martin. On the big screen, Sophie's polished slides, my slides, ready to go live for signing. Martin stood. Before we begin, I'd like to thank everyone who made this possible. Sophie, especially. Her vision. Sorry to interrupt. My voice cut through the hum. Sharp. Deadly. Every head turned. I placed a single flash drive on the table. But before you close this deal, there's something you all should see. Martin laughed. Tight. Performative. Evelyn, this isn't the time. Oh, it is, I said. In fact, it's exactly the time. Maya, seated quietly near the IT rep, pressed enter on her laptop. The screen behind Martin flickered. The slides vanished, replaced by a cascade of system logs, timestamps, and emails. Every stolen file. Every edit. Every trace of how Martin and Sophie had rewritten history. The room fell silent. Then came the recordings, the audio clips of Martin dictating how to adjust authorship, so it looked like Sophie's work. His voice was calm, clinical. Then, Sophie's email. Should I tell her we've been working on the side deck? The Kestrel execs looked horrified. One whispered, "You falsified the source files?" Sophie's face drained of color. Martin's composure cracked. He tried to speak, denied, deflected, but every word echoed against the evidence. And then, the final blow, the contract clause Maya had dug up, projected for all to see. If material misrepresentation is discovered during due diligence, all agreements are rendered null and void. $80 million. Gone. The Kestrel reps stood. We'll be re-evaluating our partnership, one said coldly. Martin sank into his chair, ashen. Sophie stared at him, realizing too late that he'd never protect her. He'd only used her, same as he'd used me. As the board erupted in chaos, I gathered my folder and stood to leave. Martin looked up at me, voice barely a whisper. "You'll ruin everything." I paused at the door, met his eyes and said, "You already did." I just turned on the lights. And for the first time since the day they erased me, I felt nothing but peace. Because revenge wasn't about rage anymore, it was about restoration. I didn't burn their empire down. I just showed everyone what it was built on, and watched it collapse on its own. When power collapses, it doesn't explode, it implodes. Quiet. Controlled. Inevitably. A week after the Kestrel deal died, Holden and Company was unrecognizable. The once bustling office now echoed with empty cubicles and half-packed boxes. The firm's PR team called it an internal restructuring. Everyone else knew it for what it was, a corporate funeral. Martin resigned, for personal reasons, 3 days after the board meeting. HR escorted him out before lunch. I heard his corner office sat untouched for days, blinds closed, nameplate gone. The rumor was he tried to take credit for discovering the fraud, but the digital trail I'd left behind made that impossible. The partners froze his shares pending investigation. Sophie didn't fare much better. When the story broke in trade circles, an internal whistleblower exposing falsified authorship in a failed $80 million deal, she was the face of it. No one wanted to touch her after that. She reached out once, a single-line email. I didn't know he'd go that far. I didn't reply. Because maybe she didn't know. But she chose not to ask. As for me, I didn't return to Holden. I didn't need to. The truth had already done my job for me. For the first time in years, I started sleeping. I moved out of the city, somewhere quieter, where buildings didn't hum with ambition. I still consult occasionally, but now on my terms. I pick clients who respect honesty, not manipulation. People ask if I ever regretted it. If it was worth it, losing everything just to prove a point. And the truth is, yes. Because sometimes peace isn't soft or simple. Sometimes it comes dressed as ruin, the kind that clears space for something real to grow. One evening, months later, I got a call from Kestrel's CEO. They'd reopened the merger, this time with a new consulting firm, mine. They wanted someone they could trust. When I hung up, I stood by my window, looking out over the city skyline. The same view that used to feel like a cage now looked like possibility. I thought of Martin's words. You've done more than enough. He was right. I had. But he never imagined I'd finish what he started, and do it better. I smiled, softly. Not out of revenge this time, but release. They replaced me with an intern, I whispered to the empty room. So I replaced them with the truth. And for the first time, that truth didn't burn. It healed. Have you ever been betrayed, by a boss, a friend, or someone you trusted completely? Tell me your story in the comments. You never know. Your story might be the next one I tell. And if you felt that revenge hit just right, make sure to subscribe. There's always another story waiting to rise from the ashes.